I'm about to tell you a true story, and like you were saying, how you get, what point of view, where do you come at it from? I have been mulling this story over because while I was given a lot of trial transcripts about the story, so I had to glean through those. So if you heard me tell this story on Wednesday in Safety Harbor, forgive me, but I've been just trying to figure out how to get it out, and I've decided that the theme of this story is honor. Specifically Southern honor. Specifically Southern honor when it comes to female virtue. This happened in Richmond, Virginia, right after the Civil War. Basically in 1868, this story takes place. And at that time, my family was the Grant family. And the Grant family made their fortune on tobacco. No relation to Ulysses, I checked. And as you can imagine, at that time, Southern honor, you think about, if someone was insulted, you had a duel. That's how you settled these matters. So anyway, this is the story of the Grant family. William was the patriarch, and he had a son and a daughter, James and Mary. Now, again, like I said, this is South. This is right after the Civil War. They were the talk of the town. Mary was the belle of the ball. These were very, very prominent family. And then you have a gentleman named Rives Pollard. And he was a publisher of a weekly newspaper. And from what I've been reading about it, this sounds like the kind of paper that was kind of similar to like the National Enquirer, where it was like, let's see what, who's with who and that kind of scandal kind of stuff. And Mr. Pollard kind of sounds like, I don't know if you all know who Alex Jones is.
Oh,
was.
Yeah.
Kind of that kind of personality. So anyway, Mr. Pollard hired a reporter to write a story about the Grant family. And it was called An Elopement. And it was about Mary. And wink, wink, it was one of those, guess who saw so-and-so leave at midnight under the guise and ran off and left her parents. And it was just, for those days, a very scandalous story. It wasn't true, but it was salacious, and Pollard was going to publish it because, it sells magazine or sells newspapers. So the Grants found out about this, and they sent their people to talk to Mr. Pollard and try to get him to not publish this story. And Mr. Pollard basically tried to blackmail them and said, well, I won't publish it if you buy half my newspaper. Buy half my company, I won't publish it. And for whatever reasons, they decided they didn't want to do that. So the story got published. And 3 days later, as Mr. Pollard is getting out of his carriage to go into his office building, he gets shot dead right on the street, just bam. And this happens at about 9:30 in the morning. So there were a lot of people around and a lot of witnesses. And they kind of did that. The shot came from over there, and within about a half hour, the police had gone up there and banging on doors and finally figured out which door was locked. And they banged on the door, and it was James, Mary's brother. And he said, I don't have a key, the door's locked, you're gonna have to kick it in. So they kick in the door, and there's James with 2 pistols at his side, a rifle propped up in the corner of the room, the window about 8 inches up, with this suspiciously black char mark on the windowsill, aimed right at the street where Mr. Pollard was just shot dead. But James, he has no idea what they're talking about. There's no idea. So, he very politely says, will you protect me? And the police parade him out and take him to the police station. And apparently as they're taking him to the police station, the crowd is cheering. Give you an idea of what they thought of this man, Mr. Pollard. So anyway, like I said, this is right after the Civil War, and this is a very rich Southern prominent family. So he just paid his $10,000 bail, and he didn't have to go to jail. So they had the trial, and they had all these witnesses, and they, of course, just mentioned about the guns, about the rifle, about the charge mark on the windowsill, and about the scandalous story written about his sister, and all this evidence. But being that this is the South, at this time of year, you know, right after the Civil War, there was such a thing as honor. So, after about 4 days of trial, the jury went in the back. I think they said they deliberated for about 40 minutes, and he came back not guilty. Because even if he was guilty, he was justified. I mean, by all means, you know, it was honor. So, got away with it. That's my story.